Hello, welcome back. You're watching Impact on BBC News. I'm Kasia Madeira. Good to have you with us. Talks have resumed in Vienna today to try to rescue the Iran nuclear deal. Diplomats from Britain, France, Germany, Russia and also China are meeting Iranian counterparts for the first time since the hardliner Ibrahim Raisi was elected president of Iran 5 months ago. Now, US officials will be taking part in negotiations indirectly. We can speak to Joel Rubin, who was a deputy Assistant Secretary of State under the Obama administration, and you had a front row seat when it came to the to the deal on the American side. I've just spoken to our correspondent in Vienna, and he's not optimistic that these talks will get anywhere. What's your initial reading now from the sidelines, so to speak, as an observer of this?
Well, Kasia, that's a fair description, is that there's a lot of skepticism here in Washington right now. And to your point, I was active working in Washington on behalf of getting the nuclear deal through Congress and getting political support for it back in 2015. And we're now facing dynamics where we've seen a retreat of political support for a nuclear pact. So to get a deal that is meeting the goals, meaning a verifiable way to ensure that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon, that's crucial, but there's still not enough political support for that if it doesn't reach into other areas of Iran's illicit behavior as well in the region and with its ballistic missile activity. So a lot of skepticism right now here in Washington.
So we'll touch upon the other activities in a moment, but I just want to flag up what Robert Malley has been saying, President Biden's special envoy for Iran, saying that the window for negotiations is not open forever, that it's not a chronological clock, it's a technological clock, and saying that you can't revive a dead corpse in reference to how much progress Iran has already made in its enrichment program. Where are we with this? Has the international community missed the boat effectively?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big fear right now, is that Iran's technology and its knowledge, its know-how has accelerated since the United States departed from the deal when President Trump unilaterally withdrew. And so now Iran not only is stockpiling and enriching at higher levels than they had been before Trump left the deal, but they also have the knowledge to go further. And some are saying that Iran is, in a sense, a threshold nuclear state, or just on the cusp of that. So to wind that back, to get inspections in, that's extremely critical right now. And so Special Envoy Malley is saying the concern here is that getting that information rolled back, that's not possible. So we need to see Iran come into compliance, meet its obligations if it's going to see any chance of a restoration of its place in the international community.
Now, Israel, not surprisingly, is already saying that he's describing this as Iran's nuclear blackmail. He says that the lifting of sanctions could take place, but nothing would be offered in return. What would you hope to see realistically?
Well, what we want to see, and I think what the United States is calling for, is not just Iran coming back into compliance, but also something further, that Iran does have behaviors in the region that are deeply concerning, related to its involvement in Syria, its involvement in Yemen and Lebanon. The list goes on, in Iraq. And so there's a concern that sanctions relief would, in a way, juice those activities. And that's where Israel comes in and describes its fears that Iran would be unleashed. And that's something that the United States is dealing with in terms of additional sanctions on these other activities and other behaviors. But absent a nuclear agreement, absent Iran coming into compliance, absent there being inspections, it's impossible to see the United States lifting the sanctions that are currently in place. That's what has to be discussed today. In Vienna, the Iranians don't want to speak to the Americans directly, which is unfortunate. And they're coming in with demands about sanctions relief without saying what they'll actually do to come back into compliance with the 2015 deal.
Yeah, Iran refusing to have face-to-face meetings with US envoys for the time being. As always, Joel Rubin, fascinating to get your insight, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State under the Obama administration. Thank you for your time.